a professional speaker. I like improv. I like doing improv. Well, in 1991, I made some big changes in my life. I was 22 years old, and I was living at my mom's, and some things needed to happen differently. And so I made some big changes in my life. I moved out of I was living at my dad's. And I moved out of my dad's and into my mom's. And so that was really the springboard that I needed. And then at 22, I started to look around my life, and there was people in my life that, friends from high school. I made a group of friends in the 6th grade, and they were my friends up until this point, but now they were all off at college and or in careers and moving forward with their life, and I was not. And so it really was a big change for me to do that. And along the way, what I ended up doing was I got a job, which was also kind of a big deal for a guy like me. I can work at a job for a while, but it's really, that momentum to get a job is really difficult for me. So I got this job at a little ice cream store in Minneapolis. I'm from Minneapolis, and it was a small ice cream store, but it was very popular. And so I worked there for a while scooping ice cream, and I felt really good about it. At 22, I'm making $4.50 an hour, and I felt good about it. And I showed up, and I worked hard. And what happened was I saw this really adorable young lady. She would come in periodically, and I would just stare. I mean, it was just like, she was so cute to me. And then I would see her at this club in downtown Minneapolis dancing, and I couldn't keep my eyes off her. And her mom lived right around the corner from the store, and she would come in for coffee all the time. So I talked to her mom all the time. And what came to pass was I kind of got to know her a little bit. And then one summer, she actually came and got a job at the ice cream store that I worked at, which I loved, because now I had a chance to be charming, which I love to do. I love to be charming because it's a good gauge. For my number one gauge for if we're gonna get along is, do you laugh at my jokes? That's number one. Number two, do you find me charming? And if you fill both those boxes, if you check both those boxes, we're really gonna get along. So we worked together for a while, and she's a smart lady. And so this place though, I was in, well, let me explain. I had hair past my shoulders, and I wore t-shirts every day, and I still own some of those t-shirts actually. And people became to know me, because this place, I mean, they would have a line out the door in the summertime. In the winter, when it was 30 below, they would have people come and buy ice cream. I mean, it was that good. And so I worked in the mornings. I knew a ton of people there. We called it the Midtown area, because it was in an uptown area, but it was like between downtown and the uptown area, and it was. So there was a guy across the street. He's an author, wrote a bunch of articles for the New York Times. He actually wrote about me in the New York Times at one point. I was a character in one of his stories. And if you ever want to be humbled, have somebody write something about you that you think is going to be a positive, because that's not what happened. The light he cast me in was not the light I was expecting. Wow. But that's okay. I love the guy dearly. But so she started working there, and I had this long hair, and I was kind of dirty. I was dirty. I was kind of a greasy guy. Anyways, but I'm getting better. I'm living at mom's now. I moved out of mom's, and I'm living in a place with a roommate, and I'm paying all my own bills, and I'm making it. And I can't afford a car, so I'm riding a bike around. I could buy a bike. Which is great, except in the winter it's not so great in Minnesota riding a bike, but you do it, you do what you have to do. So I'm the mayor of Midtown. Everybody knows me. I'm also a member of AA at the time, and which is the largest organization that you've never really know much about. I'll tell you that right now. And if you work at a coffee shop, you meet a ton of people in AA. That's just how it is. So because sober people love to drink coffee almost more than they do anything else. So it was coffee, cigarettes, and long hair, and me working here. And so as I'm getting better, and I'm trying to have a better life. At one point, my brother was going to get married, and I was about 4 years of not drinking at the time, and my brother was getting married out in Lake Tahoe, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to surprise the whole family, and I cut my hair. and I cut it short, and it was like, I arrived in California, nobody knew I had done it, and the whole family was just stunned. They're like, my God, this looks great. And I just continued to say it was, I just want to make sure it was for the pictures, because those pictures would be around forever, and I just wanted to look sharp for the pictures. But what happened was, I caught the eye of this girl that I worked with, because now I had this short hair, and she was peaked now again suddenly. And so that year, that was October, that year we had a Christmas party, a holiday party, and we went bowling. And she was complaining about her aching feet. So I rubbed her feet, because that's what you do when you're flirting with somebody and they complain about aching feet, you rub their feet. And she let me, which was phenomenal. So we started talking off, not just in the store when we worked together, but like I would call her. And then she went back to school. She went to Smith, which is an all-women's college out in Massachusetts. And I think their motto is, if you're not a lesbian yet, give it 5 days. So I'm going to circle back to that, of course. So she went to Smith College, and she loved it, and we talked by phone. To give you an idea, I didn't make a lot of money. From 1991 to 2000, I made $100,000. I checked my Social Security statement today. $100,000 in a decade. That's $10,000 a year. That's not much. So the reason I tell you that is not because I'm boasting, but because back then, long distance was a thing. So we talked all the time. The only touching we'd done was I touched her feet at that party, but that was it. But now, from December until March, we talked all the time. I had a $400 phone bill, which was my rent at the time. I mean, it was a big deal, but we would just talk for hours, and we just got along so well. It was wild. So when she came back, it was like we had this opportunity to get together, and we did. And it was uncomfortable, and it was weird, and I loved it, and it was awkward, and we just continued to connect. And her friends were like, he's just some sort of a weird guy. Why would you guys talk so much on the phone? What are you talking about? And we talked about everything. I mean, it was not, we just didn't even really go to we didn't have phone sex, okay? We didn't have phone sex. But we had phone relations, it was like phone intimacy. And so when she came back, we now had an opportunity to engage in that physical intimacy. So we did. I want to make sure I'm hitting all my top points here. $400 long distance bill, $100,000 in a decade dating. So we would do summers. She was at Smith College. I went to New York. And then so we'd spend the summers together. I went to New York for a while, and the visitor drove up to Massachusetts, rented the car. It was really great. I said 20 minutes. I know it was 12 to 15, but I moved to San Diego in 1997, and we were still dating heavily. But I moved out here. She had come out to visit a couple of times, but we talked on the phone every day. I mean, it was a phenomenal relationship. She was really amazing, and she now was doing an internship in the city in Manhattan, and she's in fashion. I was debating whether or not I would say her name or her partner's name, and I decided not to, because they're like, if you've Googled yourself and sometimes you find that weird picture you didn't know was going to be online. This couple, they're the kind of people that when you start to Google them, like it autofills for them. Whoa. Like that's the level they're at now. And so, but I'll come back to that. So we were dating. She's this amazing person. Her career is just booming, and a woman that she met at Smith College and her started connecting again. And so she broke up with me. So she broke up with me long distance. And I want to tell you that it was difficult on so many levels. Number one, because we talked every day. I mean, it was like an addiction almost. I mean, she was in my blood. We talked every day. We wrote letters. People don't write letters anymore, but we wrote letters to each other. She would do these huge collages from magazine cutouts and send them to me. And she's a very talented person. To give you an idea, there are times where I've been in New York and an entire ad campaign was one that she had produced. That's the level that she was at in the fashion industry. And her partner is a photographer who's done photos of Barack Obama. That on the cover of Vogue magazine kind of level of stature for what they do. So, she's this amazing person, and I'm living in San Diego, and I'm living on $10 a day because I've got a job that's kind of paying me, but I've got a bunch of credit card debt, and it's like, I'm now on the edge of 30, and it's not busting out for me. I'm not there. But I don't mean that in a bad way, because here's what was happening. I moved to San Diego, and I said to my friend Pat one night, it was a Sunday, I'm going to AA meetings here, and if you've never been to an AA meeting in the fall, anybody that's new to AA always wants to talk about going back to school. That they want to get their life back together. And so I said to Pat at a meeting on a Sunday night, Pat, I think I'd like to go back to school. I was 27 years old, and I'd been asked to leave the University of Minnesota with a .67. There we go. Thank you, Siri. With a .67 GPA. The University of Minnesota said no more. So I struggled through another community college back in Minnesota. And it was a Sunday night here, 1997, and Pat said, well, if you're thinking about it, you better think fast because classes start tomorrow. So I went and took a class, and I did okay. And then I took another class, and I did okay. And then I went through, and by the time she broke up with me in 2001, I think it was, 2002 maybe, I was in school. I mean, by this time I'm at San Diego State, and I'm on my way to a degree in accounting. And it's like, I'm building these pieces to have a life that seems grounded, to be solid, to not completely fall off the rails. And it's like I'm adding these little steps. I moved from dads into moms. I got the job. I made the move out to here. I went to college, and so I'm building these things. And in the meanwhile, like, she's like stardom. I mean, they're hanging out with movie stars. I mean, they're taking pictures of movie stars and hanging out together. And I'm like, we still talk occasionally, but this breakup was killing me. The breakup itself was really hard. What she told me, I don't know who gave me this advice, but I'll never forget it. They said you need to go 11 weeks with no contact. And I don't know where that number came from. But I've told people that since, because it really, it's like a substantial enough amount of time to sort of break away from that emotion and let yourself then be. But it ached every moment of that 11 weeks while I wasn't talking to her. So we broke it up, and then we did get together for one Thanksgiving after that, and we started talking on the phone, and it's my adrenaline's rushing every time I'm talking on the phone, and we're both, she goes home to Minnesota every Thanksgiving. It's a big holiday for her family, so I made it a point to be back there. Now, I was dating somebody else at the time, so my intentions were not good, and my actions were not good. And the reaction from my bad actions was also not good, because I no longer ended up dating the woman that I was dating here because of what happened back in Minnesota. But it did not elevate my stature with her at all, other than we had just a brief thing. So she's dating somebody. They end up getting married. They end up having a couple of kids. I'm seeing all this now, 1997 or so, 98, 99. I'm seeing all of her life on Facebook, and I'm seeing what's going on. And it's I don't want to say it's killing me, because along the way, I've gotten married. I've had kids now in 2007, 2008, not 97, 98, 2007, 98. I've had kids. I'm married. I've got a different life. I continue to build. I've got a career that's going along. And what ended up happening was we just, we couldn't be together, because her life was there, my life was here. I just, there was no way I could pick it up and go there. So it just made sense. I just didn't want it to make sense. I wanted us to somehow end up back together, is what I wanted. And so we kept going along. I've got kids. I have a wife, and then my wife and I get divorced, and my wife, my now ex-wife, my co-parent, has met them. Like, we went to New York together, and we all had dinner together, and she loves them. Like, they're really good people. But in the back of my mind, if I'm honest with myself, I'm still thinking about it. I'm still thinking, I wonder if there's an opportunity for us to get together. I wonder if something could happen that, maybe they want me to be the father of their children. Maybe that's, they didn't. That, my gene pool is not really quite there. But these are the kind of thoughts that I'm thinking along the way. And so what we have turned into, though, over time, is she's got this amazing career. They've got this amazing career. I'm very stable here. I'm a father. I have 3 kids. They're great kids. You might not think so. I think so, and that's a big deal because I don't like kids. I'm not a fan of kids. Like the fact that I like these kids is kind of cool. But we have very different lives, just very different lives. And even though there's a part of me that sometimes just yearns for that, so what we do now is I don't really see her. I have no reason to go to New York. I mean, I have every reason to want to go to New York, to see her, to find some way to be together with her. But I have no reason to go to New York, maybe to visit. And if I do, I would probably reach out and say, hey, we should have dinner, which I've done in the past and I would do again. So now I'm in a relationship now that I've been in for a few years. And it's great, you know. We have a home. I'm co-parenting really well. I wasn't doing accounting even though I have a degree in accounting, and I became a CPA, and now I'm an accountant actually. And I have a really good position, and it's a great opportunity. I'm working from home, and like my life is really solid and it's really stable. And the things that have happened along the way have just been a matter of just building that along. But I keep looking out there at that bright light in New York. And I call her every year on her birthday, and she'll flat out say, I love your birthday call. And I immediately think, we should talk more. But she'll always keep that distance there. Like I love, the birthday call. And she does. Make no mistake. I mean, she really cherishes, but it's just once a year, So it's not nearly enough for me. So I will tell you kind of why this came up is she reached out to me and she said she spent a lot of time in LA, but she usually would never contact me if she's up in LA. But she was going to be in San Diego for something. And this is about, 2 weeks ago. She was going to be out in San Diego. And she said, hey, I'm coming to San Diego. I just want to let you know we definitely got to get together. And I, very casually, I said, that'd be great. I didn't tell anybody she was coming, because I'm probably trying to plan something in my head that's beyond rational thinking. In other words, I want to see her, but not let anybody know that I see her, so that if something were to happen, I can claim plausible deniability. I can lie about it. So I don't hear from her. I know she's here in town. I know it's like Sunday she's here. I know Monday she's here. I know Tuesday she's here, and I don't hear from her. And so I'm thinking, how am I going to breach this? So I reach out. And I just say, hey, I thought you were in town. I just want to confirm. And she's like, she sent back a note, and it was just, we've been so busy, and that's why I didn't call, because I wasn't going to be able to see you. And it was like everything from that initial breakup that just killed me. Just not with the same intensity, but with almost that same sort of purpose, just settled into all of those old holes in me. And it's like the ache never really left, but it just settled right in there. And it kind of made me feel gross. Number one, that I've kept those sort of spaces open, that somehow there's this thing that could be. And I've not let that go. And it's been really difficult for me to do that. And so when we looked at this song, I read it, and I read the lyrics, and I listened to the song, and I read the lyrics, and it just wasn't connecting with me. And I know that this probably isn't what maybe you saw in the song, but I tasted your wine and your ecstasy until I disappeared, never to return. Now on the secret anniversary, I still feel you burn. And tell me, what has love earned? And it's like everything about it just, it felt so strong. And it's really, I have a really tough time sometimes just being okay with being okay. But the reality of my life is just okay is a hell of a good place to be. And so, anyway, that's what I got. Thanks.